Let's start with the question. Who are the original inhabitants of the world of The Witcher 3? The wiki regarding the conjunction of the spheres reads: the conjunction of the spheres is a cataclysm which occurred 1,500 years before the events in the novels, trapping many unnatural creatures in this dimension, including ghouls, graveers, and vampires. So monsters and magic were introduced to us humans 1,500 years ago. But the next paragraph says it was during this time that the elves, say humans, or more specifically, the Dork and Wasgor people, first appeared. Their own world having been destroyed, these people colonized the north, and possibly the south. So humans were sent to the elves from another world. But the priest at the beginning of The Witcher 3 says in a time past, our world intertwined with another through an upheaval scholars call the conjunction of the spheres. The gods allowed unholy forces to slip into our domain. The offspring of that cataclysm was the nefarious force called magic. Yet we did not banish it, instead studying the vile arcane for our own power and wealth. Which contradicts the elves because it implies humans were already living in the target world. And that humans were also in a position to banish magic should we have wished it. This is very confusing to me, who originally lived in our dimension in the Witcher universe. So how can we solve this? There are three possible answers. Answer 1. We know about first inhabitants of Witcher world from Andrzej Sapkowski's books. There is a conversation between Ciri and Jarpan Zigrin, dwarf, about history of people in this world and about first races. So first there were gnomes. Next arrived dwarves and halflings. Next arrived elves and conquered all races thanks to magic. This is a reason why dwarves are inhabitants of mountains. All good areas were conquered by elves. The last race on continent were humans. They arrived in small number and weren't destroyed by elves because women of elves recognized human males as good sexual partners. They could have more children with humans than with elves. Humans quickly reproduced. They also could use magic. And after several hundreds years they conquered elves. Answer 2. Long story short, gnomes are the oldest known sapient race. Then dwarves appear some 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. If we take D&D parallels which Sapkowski heavily used, they awoke from the earth, though they could have also come from somewhere. Then elves on their interdimensional ships come about 2,500 years before the games, then 1,000 years later conjunction happens. These things seem to be periodical in that world. And humans, vampires, monsters and magic appear on the world some 1,500 years before the books. But these early humans were scattered and apparently lived mostly in the south where they mixed with southern elves, which centuries later resulted in Nilfgaardians, Zerrikanians etc. In the sparsely populated north, elves divided into city-states and small kingdoms. The only known human cultures were Wasgor and Dork, but they seem to have been primitive forest-dwelling peoples that raised menhirs and from which some current beliefs came, like Melitel and Druidism. Then around 500 years before the book's belligerent ancestors of Nordlings called the Exiles arrive from somewhere and start carving up the realms much like conquistadors in real life. Most of the current northern kingdoms and cities are not older than 3 centuries, which in a weird way is kinda realistic for pseudo-medieval period and rarely seen in fantasy. Usually fantasy authors go the other way and make everything implausibly old. I also think it is kinda implied that in addition to fertility and warfare, epidemics of diseases decimated both the elves and Wasgor and Dork, causing their downfall, ensuring The expansion of Nordlings. Answer 3. The obvious reasoning would be that the conjunction of the spheres is part of our timeline. As the readers Avalache stated in the books that the humans literally destroyed their own world. So the thing that would make most sense to me is that the humans must have been as advanced as we are now, and thus the conjunction of the spheres is set in our future. I hope these answers helped, and if they did, please drop a comment and subscribe.